Hey everybody, it's Ben in Beta, and today I have a video review for you on the DJI Neo drone. So a little backstory here. I picked this up because I needed something that was going to be able to kind of track me around when I was doing different types of reviews. I was also hoping it was something I was going to be able to use overlanding, that I wasn't going to have to take this big drone with me every time I went out to be able to take some of those shots. And I just wanted to give it a try. I mainly bought it for tracking and maybe doing some dolly as well when I'm doing things in the garage, when I'm doing detailing videos, that kind of stuff. And I just ended up purchasing the drone by itself just to test out to see if I wanted to keep it or not. And that comes with the drone. It comes with a tool to change out the blades, as well as a couple of replacement blades. And it also comes with a manual and a charging cable too. I was able to get this drone while I was in Wisconsin at my mom's house, and I started using it there. Overall, it works pretty well. It's nice and light, and it does track you fairly well. It can kind of run into things and not really have a problem. I haven't actually crashed it at all at this point, which is good. There are controls here in the front, and you're going to see a lot of videos out there that show you how all these work, but you basically just push this button to change the modes. So first, let's start with the good. The footage from this drone is pretty good. It tracks you fairly well and gives you some pretty cool and unique shots that you wouldn't be able to get with a bigger drone. Or if you tried with a bigger drone, it would be kind of a problem because you usually don't get that close. So I liked that. It's also very small, very portable, and easy to use. It has a gimbal cover, which is great. It's pretty indestructible. Battery life's fine for something this size. Another positive is the app. The app works really well, gives you a good preview. You're able to control the drone with manual controls pretty easily. And it allows you to switch a lot of the settings. You can change the height and the distance with the different modes, which is pretty cool. And I did appreciate all that. It worked really pretty well.
So in this clip here, the video that's happening in the app doesn't exactly match what's happening in the background, but what you can see was I was setting the drone up to be able to fly. You can also see at the top that there's a high altitude warning and that the drone was already at its max altitude before I even launched it. But launching it itself was not too difficult. I was able to get that to work. You're also going to get to see some of the manual controls that you have inside the application to be able to move the drone around to where you want it, to be able to move it backward, forward, up, down, rotate it, so on and so forth. All that worked really pretty well in the app, and I was generally pretty happy with how that worked. You can also see that it locks onto me pretty quickly, which makes things pretty easy. So that stuff's all generally pretty good. In the clip that's playing behind there, you can see I had some issues with the drone deciding to kind of do whatever it wanted and just running into me a couple of different times when I was trying to do some work. And that was kind of strange. So it's definitely not perfect. And I think there are some things that can be worked out with software in the future, but that's kind of how the app works and some of the problems I ran into with the drone.
I did run into some issues where this button stopped working, and it would stop on the spotlight and it just wouldn't go any further. And that happened quite a few times. I had to use the app in order to change the mode, or I had to turn the drone off and turn it back on again, which was kind of a pain in the butt. I also found that sometimes with tracking, especially close tracking, it would run into me quite often, which was not ideal. It does have voice controls, so you can try to adjust some things that way. I didn't find that to work very well either for me personally, but it is there. And I'm sure this will get better over time. I think people really like the video quality for this type of drone. 4K video that comes out of this is pretty decent for something this size. I was actually pretty impressed by that. While this worked really well in Wisconsin, closer to sea level, when I was using this the other day, here at 6,000 feet of elevation, I actually was getting the altitude warning and saying it was already at max elevation. And we tried to use this when we were out looking for some leaves in the mountains at about 8,500 feet. It really struggled to even work at all, which was a problem. For me personally, it's not going to be a great option because of that. So I think if you live at elevation, this is maybe not the right drone for you. That being said, who is this drone really for? If you're looking for a drone that's really easy to operate, only takes a cell phone in order to operate, I think this is pretty great. And I think it'll work for most people. I'm kind of looking for something that has a little bit better resolution and picture quality than what comes out of this, although it's not bad at all, and something with HDR support because I tend to publish all my videos in HDR as well. And while I have a larger drone, I was hoping that this was going to replace some of that use at elevation and when I was overlanding, and that just didn't work out too well. I was able to get it to work even at 8,500 feet, but it didn't respond very well, and the battery life got chewed up very quickly. And that's one of the things you need to think about here. So if I lived at sea level, I'd have no problems picking this up, especially for $200. And at $289, when you get the extra batteries in the battery case, that's a really great way to go. Plus, if you already have another DJI drone, you can pretty easily use the controller that you have in most cases, which is kind of cool. I do think it's a great drone for a lot of people. If you're just looking for something that's casual, something to follow you around, give you some cool shots when you're on vacations, on trips, or spending time with your family and being able to kind of capture those memories, I think it's a pretty good drone. I will be getting the Hover Air X1 Pro Max in a little bit, and I believe that one will work a little bit better at elevation. I'm hoping that is going to be the case. That one also has HDR support, but you can look for that video in the future. So please leave your questions and comments. I will try to answer those. I am going to return this because it's not working properly with that button, and the firmware update didn't seem to fix it. And it obviously doesn't work for me at elevations. I do think if this drone did have more obstacle avoidance sensors on it, like it does on the bottom, it'd probably be even better. Even if it was just a little bit more expensive, I think just having some forward-backward obstacle avoidance would be helpful. But it does a pretty good job of tracking you and not running into things overall. But it could be a little bit better in that regard. The modes are pretty good. They work great. They give you some pretty good shots, though most of them seem to require a subject that was a person in order to use them. And that was kind of a problem for me as well, because sometimes I want my subject to be a vehicle. And maybe in a future update that will happen. I have a link to this drone if you want to pick one of those up. If you found the video at all helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this out with anybody you think might find it helpful. But thank you so much for watching. Remember, live your life in beta, and we'll see you next time.